Hey guys, how you all doing? BionicleSaurus here, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at the Favorite Co. Limited Series 2 Styracosaurus. Okay, pro tip, if you're going to try and spin things in the intro of your video, make sure that you can actually spin them with your hands. That is extremely helpful. Alright, so right off the bat, let's talk colors. This thing has some pretty nice colors for a Favorite Co. figure. I think one of the biggest complaints I hear about Favorite Co. is that all their figures are extremely bright and monotone, but that's just not really the case here. Now, the paint application isn't necessarily all that much better than any other Favorite Co. figure, at least from the Series 2 line. It's still pretty, you know, like, oh, there's two distinct shades of paint, and they're not really blended or anything, just kind of one shade and then more of the other color splotched on. But that's fine because the colors themselves, the actual color palette they went with, is a lot better than some of their figures, that's for sure. Like if you take their other main Ceratopsian, they have their trike, that thing is just like bright blue all over, whereas this one is kind of, you know, sort of a beige tan kind of color with some kind of super dark olive green, gray sort of color going on with the splotches and patterns on it. And it really comes across a lot nicer. It also has a slightly lighter colored belly with some kind of a little bit of sort of kind of pinkish hue in the middle there, which is interesting. Very subtle paintwork actually, which is unusual for Favorite Co. Overall, they've really done a much more naturalistic paint job than what they usually do. With this figure in particular, it looks so much more believable and natural and suited to a wild environment of trees and dirt and rocks and things, and it's just really visually pleasing as well. It's so much nicer than a lot of their figures that are just like, wow, you picked a color from the rainbow and just BAM! In your face. This is so much more restrained, and I really give them a lot of props for what they did with the colors on this one. You all know me in earth tones, obviously this is just, you know, it's right in my wheelhouse. Now as far as the sculpt is concerned, the sculpt is really good on this. The texture isn't spot on. There's a lot of wrinkling, and that just, I mean, there's no reason for that to be there. This wasn't smooth, loose on the bones mammalian skin or anything. This thing probably had perfectly normal ceratopsid reticula. We have a lot of pretty extensive direct evidence for what the integument of ceratopsians was actually like, and we know it was scaly, and we know that it wasn't just wrinkles. They had proper reticula, proper scalation. Now, this thing gets it right for the most part. I don't want to discredit it. It has a lot of nice individual sculpted scales, and in general, the scalation looks quite good on most of the figure. But there's just certain areas like the neck, especially, that are just kind of these little regions of gross, wrinkly veininess, and there's no reason for it to look like that. So it's unfortunate. They got pretty close as far as skin texture is concerned to what we actually know these animals to have looked like in terms of that specific aspect. But they didn't quite get it spot on. It's still nice though. The pose is freaking awesome. Okay, I can't stress enough how fantastic a simple walking pose can be if it's this well executed. So many figures, they try to add things, oh, let's splay the legs out, let's open the mouth, let's have them kind of stopping and roaring off into the distance, looking all cool and majestic. No, you don't need any of that. All you need is to execute a perfect mid-stride look. And this figure does it fantastically. The way the limbs are positioned, it really does look like it could just be walking right off the screen. It's so graceful and naturalistic and lifelike in its appearance. That's what's impressive about this. It doesn't have Papo level detail, it doesn't have Safari limited level accuracy, but it seems more realistic than certain Papo and Safari figures that you could go and take a look at just because the pose is so well executed. To me, a well executed pose of any kind, but a walking pose is by far the perfect example of this. The perfect pose is one that captures movement, because that's what this is all about. That's what poses are all about. You're supposed to make it look like this thing could just start moving on its own, and like I said, this really does an amazing job of that. Just look at how they've captured this mid-stride look with all of the limbs just perfectly positioned. Nothing is contorted or broken or weird or twisted looking. It's all so natural and believable. It looks like an animal in motion. It's so well done. I'm not an expert on Styracosaurus skulls, but as far as I can tell, the head sculpt on this figure is pretty much spot on to the real thing. I apologize, I don't have a habitual daily routine of ogling ceratopsian skulls, I'm afraid. I do think the horn is ever so slightly curved upwards. I think it should be more straight or even curved sort of down and out a little bit, but that could just be my figure for all I know. I mean, it bends pretty easy. It could vary from individual to individual, I'm not sure. As far as little accuracy things go, with like the feet, they're not perfect, unfortunately. The outer two toes do have toenails on them, which they should not. Actually, let's see, is there a cloaca on this? No, not really. For size, I'm just gonna quickly bring in my my usual sort of relatable figure, I suppose, the BionicleSaurus. I assume most people have owned this or seen it in person at one point, so always good to have that. And I'm also going to bring in another Papo figure, which is the Styracosaurus, as you probably guessed. So my overall rating for this one is a 9 out of 10. As far as accuracy is concerned, you know, it's not as spot on, not as just knocking it straight out of the park as like a safari ceratopsian, but it's still quite well done. It's flawed, not perfect, highly imperfect when it comes to accuracy, but darn is it close. I mean, the skull is basically spot on. They didn't quite get the feet right, the integument isn't perfect, but you know what? They did way better than a lot of companies have in the past. For Styracosaurus specifically, not ceratopsians, but just this genus, I mean, this again is like one of your top options for Styracosaurus. In terms of colors and paint job, it's not amazing, but it's better than most Favorite Co figures. Like Favorite Co kind of did better on this one than they do on most. This is kind of an exceptional figure for their Series 2 stuff, in my opinion. And overall, it's just visually pleasing, it's well made, it's not Papo detail, it's not perfect paint application, it's Favorite Co. You know, you're not getting the best quality in the world, you're certainly not getting the worst though. This is still a well-made thing overall, and the paint job and whatnot, it's all very solid. It's not mind-blowing, but it's solid, and to me, the dynamic, fluid pose, the super just lifelike kind of just vibe and personality that just emanates off this thing, it's really quite good. Thank you for watching, and BionicleSaurus signing out. Oh wow, yeah, okay.